rays of the setting sun bled across the suburban sky, painting the undersides of the clouds in hues of orange and purple. Officer Smith's patrol car moved at a crawl down Maple Street, a usually quiet lane in a neighborhood he knew like the back of his hand. The evening air was starting to cool, carrying the faint scent of freshly cut grass and distant barbecues. It was on his third pass that he saw her, a small silhouette huddled on the curb, almost swallowed by the growing shadows of an old oak tree. He pulled over, the cruiser's engine a soft rumble in the otherwise quiet street. As he stepped out, the stillness was broken only by the chirping of crickets. The little girl couldn't have been more than 6. Her hair, the color of straw, was matted and fell across a face smudged with dirt and tears. She was tiny, her knees pulled up to her chest, her arms wrapped tightly around them as if trying to hold herself together. She wasn't just sitting, she was anchored by a fear so palpable, Smith could feel it from the sidewalk. Her eyes, widening and reflecting the distant streetlights, darted towards him, filled with an unbearable mix of terror and a desperate, flickering hope. She looked utterly lost, a tiny ship adrift in a vast, uncaring ocean. Smith approached slowly, his footsteps measured, his voice deliberately soft. "Hey there, little one," he began, crouching down to her level, mindful of not towering over her. "I'm Officer Smith. Are you okay? Are you lost?" She flinched at his voice, her small body tensing. For a moment, he thought she might bolt. Then her gaze, which had been darting around her, locked onto his. Her lips trembled, and a tiny, choked whisper escaped, so faint he had to lean in closer. "Save me, please." 3 words, uttered with such raw, unadulterated desperation, they sent an icy shiver down Smith's spine, raising goosebumps on his arms despite the mild evening. This wasn't a child who'd merely wandered off during playtime. This was something far more sinister. The raw anxiety vibrating in her voice, the sheer terror in her eyes, painted a grim picture. He knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his gut, that he had to act, and act fast. There was no other choice. His instincts, honed by years on the force, screamed that time was a luxury they didn't have. He reached for his radio, his mind already racing. "Dispatch, this is Unit 7. I've got a possible situation here on Maple Street. Young female child. Appears to be in distress. Requesting backup. Can you see if Officer Miller is available?" He specifically asked for Lisa Miller, his trusted colleague. Lisa had a way with kids, a calm and reassuring presence that could soothe even the most frightened child. More than that, she was a sharp, intuitive investigator. Within minutes, Lisa's patrol car pulled up. She got out, her expression immediately softening as she took in the scene. Smith kneeling, the small girl still huddled, her eyes wide and wary. Lisa approached with the same gentle caution Smith had used. "What have we got?" "Smitty," she asked quietly, her gaze fixed on the child. Smith recounted the brief, chilling encounter, his voice low. "She just said, 'Save me, please.' I haven't pressed her for more. Didn't want to scare her further." He explained how the girl had been alone, her appearance, the overwhelming sense of fear. Lisa nodded, her eyes reflecting a deep concern that mirrored his own. She knelt beside Smith. "Hi, sweetie," Lisa said, her voice like warm honey. "My name is Lisa. We're here to help you. You're safe with us." The girl didn't respond, but her gaze flickered between the 2 officers, a tiny spark of something less than terror now visible. While Lisa tried to build a sliver of trust, Smith made a quick decision. He pulled out his department-issued phone and, with a gentle, "Is it okay if I take your pictures, sweetheart? It might help us find your family." He snapped a quick, clear photo. He immediately sent it out through the secure police network, a silent alert to every officer on duty in the city and surrounding precincts. "Every second counts," he murmured to Lisa. "The sooner we get her face out there, the better." He knew that getting information out quickly was paramount. Just as they were discussing their next steps, an elderly woman, Mrs. Henderson from a few houses down, ambled over, drawn by the sight of two police cars. She peered at the little girl, her brow furrowed in concentration. Suddenly, her eyes widened in recognition, followed by a gasp. "Oh, dear Lord," she whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. That's, that's little Lily. She lives, or, well, she did live with the Petersons down the way, but they moved out last month. Said they couldn't manage anymore. She's an orphan. Officers. No other family that I know of." The word orphan hung heavy in the air, a lead weight dropping into the pit of Smith's stomach. His heart ached with a profound pity for this tiny creature, already dealt such a harsh hand by life. He saw the same sorrow reflected in Lisa's eyes. This changed things, complicating the search immensely. "All right," Smith said, his voice gentle but firm as he dressed the child. "Lily, we're going to take you somewhere safe. Okay, to the station. We can get you something warm to drink, and we'll figure this all out." Lisa carefully helped Lily to her feet. The child was hesitant, but allowed Lisa to guide her to the warmth of the patrol car. On the way to the station, Smith and Lisa discussed their strategy in hushed tones. Dealing with a child who was not only lost, but also an orphan without apparent guardians required a different approach. They decided to broaden the information campaign, contacting Child Protective Services immediately and preparing to issue a citywide alert if necessary, hoping to find distant relatives or someone, any, who might know her. The station was a flurry of activity, but they found a quiet room for Lily. Calls began to trickle in response to the initial alert, each one a small spark of hope, but they were quickly extinguished. "Yes, we saw a girl. No, blonde hair, not brunette. Is there a reward she might be the one I saw at the mall?" The hours ticked by, filled with potential leads that led nowhere, each dead end adding to their growing frustration. Smith and Lisa took turns sitting with Lily, who had barely said another word, her silence a heavy blanket over their efforts. Despite the mounting disappointment, they refused to give up. Lily's small, trusting gaze, even in her fear, fueled their determination. Her life, they knew, depended on them. Then, a call came through that was different. It was from a resident in a very affluent, gated community on the other side of town, a place of sprawling mansions and manicured lawns. The caller, a groundskeeper, spoke with a nervous tremor in his voice. I think I might have seen that girl. Around the Blackwood Estate. There's something not right there." The voice on the other end of the line held a note of genuine concern that cut through the noise of false alarms. A surge of adrenaline, of renewed hope, coursed through Smith. He and Lisa exchanged a look. This felt significant. They quickly but carefully got Lily back into the car and headed towards the indicated address, the Blackwood Estate. As they approached the opulent gates of the estate, driving down a long, tree-lined driveway towards a colossal, almost Gothic-looking mansion, Lily, who had been listlessly staring out the window, suddenly sat bolt upright. Her eyes, previously dull with exhaustion and fear, widened, and a small gasp escaped her lips. She pointed a trembling finger towards the imposing structure. Her entire demeanor changed. Her eyes sparked with a mixture of fear and an undeniable recognition that was impossible to ignore. Smith and Lisa looked at each other, a silent understanding passing between them. This was it. This had to be a connection. "Lily, do you know this place?" Smith asked gently. She just nodded, her eyes fixed on the mansion, a new wave of anxiety washing over her face. They pulled up to the front entrance, a massive oak door that looked like it belonged to a castle. With hearts pounding with a mix of anticipation and trepidation, they decided to inspect the mansion, to understand the connection between this place and the terrified child in their care. This could be the key moment in their investigation. A middle-aged man, impeccably dressed but with an air of cold displeasure, answered the door. He introduced himself as Mr. Blackwood, the owner. When Smith explained why they were there and showed him Lily's picture, Blackwood's denial was swift and smooth. "I've never seen this child in my life. Officers, you must be mistaken." But his eyes, cold and calculating, darted for a split second towards Lily, who cowered behind Lisa. His confidence, too polished, too quick, only amplified Smith and Lisa's suspicions. They requested permission to look around, citing the girl's clear reaction to the property. Reluctantly, Blackwood agreed, though his irritation was palpable. As they walked through the opulent, eerily silent rooms, they noticed Lily tensing up, almost shrinking into herself. Whenever they passed certain hallways or closed doors, it was a subtle but unmistakable reaction that didn't escape their notice. Something was definitely wrong here. Blackwood's feigned nonchalance was wearing thin. Realizing they needed more than just a cursory walkthrough, and sensing the owner was hiding something significant, they decided a more covert approach might be necessary if this initial visit yielded nothing concrete. But then, as they were about to conclude the tense tour, Lily, who had been silent for so long, suddenly whispered, her voice trembling, but clear, "There are others." Those three words hit Smith and Lisa like a physical blow, instantly changing the entire complexion of the investigation. They exchanged a look filled with grim understanding and a new, steely resolve. There was no more room for doubt. "Mr. Blackwood," Smith said, his voice now devoid of any pleasantries, "we have reason to believe there's more going on here than you're letting on. We're going to need to conduct a full search of the premises." He immediately radioed for a warrant and additional units. With Blackwood now officially detained, the officers began a methodical search of the mansion. It was in the cold, damp basement, hidden behind a false wall and a cleverly concealed door, that they found it, a dark, windowless room, and inside, huddled in a corner, was another child, a little boy, looking just as scared and exhausted as Lily had been. The sickening realization dawned on them: these children were being used, exploited for some terrible purpose, likely financial gain, by Blackwood. The opulence of the mansion was built on an unimaginable horror. The owner of the mansion was immediately arrested, charged with child exploitation and kidnapping. As the children were gently let out, wrapped in blankets, in the promise of safety, Smith and Lisa felt a profound mix of relief and deep sadness. They had done something incredibly important, rescued these children from a nightmare, but the knowledge of what they had endured left a bitter taste. News of the arrest and the rescue sent shockwaves through the city. The local community reacted with an outpouring of shock, then righteous anger. People gathered near the station and City Hall, not in protest, but in support of the children, demanding justice and expressing their gratitude to the officers. The children were placed in specialized foster care, surrounded by professionals dedicated to helping them heal from their trauma. Child protection agencies immediately began working tirelessly to ensure their long-term safety, to help them rebuild their shattered trust and find a path to recovery. The case of the Blackwood Estate became a stark, important lesson for everyone in the city, a horrifying reminder of the darkness that can exist even in the most unsuspecting places. For Smith and Lisa, though the immediate crisis was over, they knew their work was far from done. The fight to protect children, to ensure no other story ended as tragically as this one almost had, would continue. They would carry the memory of Lily's whispered plea, "Save me, please," as a constant reminder of their vow to serve and protect the most vulnerable.